Hi everyone. Hope everyone is doing good with all the corona stuff that's been going on. Hope we're all surviving and doing our best. For my presentation, I'm just going to be talking to you guys in a video. So I talked a little bit about this in class when we were still in person, but I struggled a lot to find a focus for my paper and to figure out what the right direction for it would be. I knew I wanted to talk about Ball State's pre-law program and kind of how it did a shoddy job of helping me along the application process and telling me what I needed to know. But I didn't really know who to tailor it to and how that was going to work. And I kind of went through a couple different main, phases is what you could call it, of what my paper was. It started out as saying that Ball State needs a better pre-law program because pre-law students typically do better in law school and they have more preparation or whatever, however you want to explain it. And through the first couple stages of my research, I found that that wasn't true. And so that was the first kind of like, oh crap moment. And then I shifted it more towards, okay, you don't have to have a pre-law program, but Ball States could be better. Well, then I found that that's not necessarily true either, and they're kind of doing what most universities are doing on this front, and it kind of morphed into a how-to guide, I guess, is the best way to say it. That way I could combine my experiences with Ball State's program and help other students and inform them about what they needed to know, thereby solving the problem, I guess. So I started out in my paper kind of just going through all that a little bit, and I did that in my process analysis too, but I talked about what I wanted to do with this paper and why I was writing it, and what problems I see in pre-law programs right now, and what I wish someone would have told me, really. So I kind of go through a couple different things. I explain some vocab words, kind of boring stuff, but the biggest, I guess my whole thesis and my thesis is trying to figure out where the line is between student responsibility for being informed about their own education and university responsibility by them reaching out to those students. Where's that line where it's like, okay, well, that's your responsibility and that's your responsibility. That's what I'm kind of trying to address in my paper. So I start off talking about what Ball State's program is, which is not a lot. It's really just on a list. That's that you kind of get a couple emails once every couple months about events that the pre-law interest group is having, and that's about it. I had to ask my advisor what classes I should be taking because there's no course list telling you what you could or could not be taking to help prepare you. There's no help when you're starting to take the LSAT. They don't tell you about how to do applications, nothing, which again, part of that does fall on the student, but they don't offer any assistance at all. I mean, I have been a declared pre-law major for 4 years now, and I have never heard from anyone from that department ever. And I tried to reach out to a couple people in the department, and I didn't hear back from any of them, and I'm one of their students, so I think that's a problem. And the biggest thing I'm pushing with when I'm explaining this part is basically saying, like, this lack of not even preparation, but help, like, I just got no help, and it made me feel like, oh God, I'm gonna have to go up against all these students who have been doing pre-law stuff for years, and I haven't been doing anything because I don't know what's happening, and I don't know what I'm doing. So that was my first little section. And then I kind of move into the more research and informing student side. And so I start off with what are the best majors. If you want to go to law school, what majors are going to prepare you the most? And like I said earlier, I started off with the belief that that is pre-law. Pre-law is the best way you can go. And through my research, I just found that it's not true. That's just not true. Most pre-law programs are not extensive enough or challenging enough, and they're not perceived that way. They're not perceived to be challenging or extensive enough by most admissions offices, and so they don't really like when applicants have that major because I remember one of my sources said it looks like you're copping out of doing something challenging. So they really prefer that you do something like journalism, because that's a lot of reading and writing, and there's a lot of reading and writing in law school, and so you can build your skills that way, or English majors for the same reason. History majors, because you can kind of learn how laws came to be and why they're doing that, and again, a lot of reading and writing. Any debate type things, they love that because obviously you're going to be a lawyer, so you're going to need to have public speaking and debate skills. Business and econ, because you can, a lot of reading and writing. This is a lot of reading and writing stuff, but public speaking and learning about how the law and the economy interact with each other and affect each other and impact each other, really. So they prefer that you would do something challenging like one of those majors I just talked about versus pre-law. Another source I found even said that most admissions offices and law school deans do not like criminal justice either, because it's for the same reason. They think that it's not challenging enough, it's not extensive enough, and you really only learn like the substantive part. So like, what are these laws? What does it do? And you're going to law school to learn that. So you don't necessarily need to have an expertise on what all these laws are going into law school. You need to have a decent grasp on what's happening, but you're going to law school to learn that stuff. What they will have a harder time teaching you if you don't have it already once you get to law school is skills with reading and writing, public speaking, debate, logic, stuff like that. So then I kind of move into what classes can kind of get important things like that, like those skills, how to find those classes, what certain experts will suggest you take. I quote the American Bar Association has like a journal for law students. They have a whole section about what classes you should be taking, how to find these classes, what classes should you be taking before law school, stuff like that. And that's, again, like the history, the business, philosophy, yada, yada, yada. And so then I kind of move into one of my bigger sections, and that is talking about what can impact students' performance in law school. And this can range from stuff that you can control to stuff that you can't. So the first one I talk about is just all about learning styles and how people learn and how different learning styles typically perform in law school, and then how professors can kind of help with that. And so the study I mainly quote is a study where they wanted to find this information so that they could tell professors, hey, you have a student who's not doing well in law school, they're struggling with X, Y, and Z subject. Here's how you can teach it to them because they're this learning style. That's what they did with this study. So I thought that was really interesting because they give a lot of information about what weaknesses and strengths each different type of learning style or information processing preference, as they call it, how you can kind of twist material and how you can tailor how you're teaching stuff to them. But the biggest thing with that is that visual learners are typically some of the worst performers in law school because all of law school material is presented in, here's this book, here's this case, here's this speech that we have to listen to, stuff like that, not how visual learners like to learn. And so I thought that was really interesting, and that was something that I kind of wish I would have known. I'm not a visual learner, but it was good to know that going in as opposed to finding out later, is the way I thought of it. And then the next source I talks about other factors besides like learning style. So he talks about race, gender, and then along with LSAT scores and your undergraduate GPA, and if you were showing up to class and doing the work, if you were contributing in class, certain types of extracurriculars that certain students did. Did they tend to do better if they did this extracurricular thing, or did they do worse? And that was another one that I thought was like, wow, okay, so these students who are doing this typically do better. That's something I should definitely remember and think about doing. Like, for example, he said that students who are in a law journal at school, which is like the top people in the class, they typically do the law journal stuff. He said they obviously have better grades. And so, okay, if I can get into a law journal in law school, great. That usually means I'm in the top tier of my class and I might be able to do better because I can collaborate with these students and work with them. So another thing that I just thought was something I wish I would have known, and it would be nice to know that going in. And so then I kind of start talking about what law schools do on this front to help their admitted students with this. Well, I'm at 9.5 minutes, so I'm gonna go a little over. But he talks about example schedules. I know I got a bunch of example schedules from universities, and so I thought that was another cool thing. And then I explained the Socratic seminar because that is one of the things that law students who are just going in struggle with, because it's a lot different than how we all have lectures and stuff like that. It's more of cold calling, and you're basically rapid firing questions at one student, and they're kind of put on their toes, if you know what I mean. And to a lot of students, this can seem like, oh God, this professor hates me and they're attacking me. And what I found was it's not the case. The whole goal is to have you have to defend your opinion in public or what you're trying to argue and back it up with facts and be able to do that under pressure. That's really what they're doing. So that was another thing I wish someone would have explained to me just so I could have been prepared. So I made sure to include that in my paper. And so at the end of my paper, I suggest to students some tips. Some tips about what they can do to help prepare themselves. The first one I have is if you can take up a pre-law minor, do it, but be in one of those challenging majors. But then you can still take your pre-law stuff without overwhelming yourself. If you can do a double major, great. That's what I did. Obviously, Ball State doesn't have any classes or anything like that, but I just was like, let's just do the major. So that's one option for students. Another one, I suggest that students figure out what this university's pre-law program is, if they can, before they go there, so that they can find what's right for them. So if they really want to do pre-law and they really want to do journalism as a double major, you got to make sure that they have that, because by the time you're there, you're kind of stuck for like a semester. So figure that out beforehand. Reach out to your advisors. Communication is a big thing that I talk about in this paper, and how the communication between Ball State and I was lacking. So I tell students, as soon as you figure out you want to go to law school, talk to your advisor, because they'll be able to tell you more. They know more information about what classes are going on and what you should be taking and stuff like that. And if they don't know, they will direct you to the place that you need to go to get those answers. And then I also suggest joining any clubs. There's a pre-law interest group that I mentioned a little bit earlier on Ball State's campus. They're super informative, stuff like that. And then my last major section before my conclusion, where I kind of reiterate everything I talked about and what the main point of the paper is suggesting to universities, if you're not going to make a pre-law program with a whole building and a whole department and all that stuff, you need to be reaching out to students and helping them, because law school is very stressful, and applying to law school is super stressful, and it's even more stressful when you feel like you don't know everything. So if they could even just have a mandatory meeting with an advisor or send out a recommended course list, something, they could help their students so much more. And these students will then feel better about their experience as a pre-law person with the university. And that's the ultimate goal. Sorry, I'm a little bit over, but that's my paper. Hope you guys had a good semester, even with all this corona stuff. Good luck in your future endeavors. Bye. Thanks.